Hi, this is Ms. Gonzalez, and today I'm going to be going over Unit 12, Lesson 1 on quadrilaterals. Now, before we get started on this assignment, we have to understand a few things. First, we need to understand what a quadrilateral is. And I'm going to write, well, it's right here, the word quadrilateral. And what that means is that it is a polygon with four sides. So remember, a quadrilateral has to be a polygon. I'm going to write it up here. It has to have four sides. And there are a lot of shapes that have those attributes. Number one being the square. Another famous one is the rectangle. And then there is the rhombus, and I'm going to write it right here next to the square because the rhombus is has the same attributes as the square. The only thing is that it looks a little slanted. Okay, and then I'm going to write parallelogram right next to rectangle because again it has the same attributes as the rectangle. And the only difference is that it's a little slanted. Now I'm putting these together in a category because there's only one that is a quadrilateral, but I'm going to put it separate and I call it the lonely trapezoid. Now the reason I call it the lonely trapezoid is because it has one pair of parallel sides. It is a quadrilateral, but it only has one pair of parallel sides. And be careful because they're going to be asking you a question about that a little later in this lesson. And these over here have two pairs of parallel sides. So I'm going to write that down. So this has two pairs of parallel sides. And the difference is this one has only one pair of parallel sides. Okay, and so that's why we call it the lonely trapezoid because, again, these have two pairs of parallel sides and this one only has one pair of parallel sides. Now, these have special names, but then you have some that do not have special names because they do not follow the rules that these do. And there's some examples right here. They are quadrilaterals, and I know they're quadrilaterals because if I draw the vertices like this, I could see that it clearly has four sides, but it doesn't have parallel sides. They don't have opposite sides congruent. They don't have all sides congruent, so they don't have a special name. They're simply known as quadrilateral. Okay, so these are just quadrilaterals. No special names. And talking about names, in your first few questions in the guided practice and in the independent practice, they're asking you just that. They want to know how many special names these shapes have. In questions 1 through 4, write as many special names as possible for each quadrilateral. Now, we don't have to write quadrilateral because they already told you that it was a quadrilateral. So I'm going to go ahead and work on number 1 and number 3, and you do 2 and 4 by yourself. Now, on number 1, I see that it is a parallelogram. It looks like a rectangle, but it's slightly slanted like I had mentioned earlier. So this is a parallelogram. Okay. It is also a quadrilateral, but quadrilaterals are polygons. So I'm going to go ahead and write that it's a polygon. And a polygon is a shape that has 3 or more sides that are closed. So parallelogram, that's also a polygon. So we could write quadrilateral, but it already told you that it was a quadrilateral. Okay, then I'm going to go over, I had said I was going to do number 3, but I'm going to do number 4. This one has a special name, and its name is square. And it's also a polygon. Okay, and so those are its special names right there. So you can make a list right on the sides, and that would be good. Number 5 says this figure is a rectangle, but it is not a square. Why? Well, obviously it's a rectangle, but the reason that it's not a square is because unlike the squares, the rectangle has opposite sides congruent. Squares have all sides congruent. So that's what I'm going to write right here. Squares have all sides congruent, and congruent means equal. Rectangles have opposite sides congruent. The next one is quite simple. All you have to do is draw two different quadrilaterals that are not rectangles, squares, or rhombuses. Well, remember, the rectangle looks like this, the square looks like this, and a rhombus is right here. So which one am I missing? Take a look at the list up there and see which one you can write. And it have to be two different ones. So and the list that's right up here, I already have the list of the different things that we can write down. So all you have to do is do two bullets and write in their names. And I'll give you an example. One example could be a parallelogram. That is not on this list, but it is on the list that I wrote on the top. So make sure you make yourself a list before you get started on this assignment. Okay, now look at the list again and see which one else is missing. When you get to number 7, 8, and 9, you're going to do the same thing you did on questions 1 through 4. So you're going to make a list here and give me their special names. All right. And by the way, you can also call them, if it applies, you can also call them parallelograms. Some of these, and I'll go back to this list, because they have two pairs of parallel sides, they can be parallelograms as well. So they can be quadrilaterals, parallelograms, and then their special name. And one last thing, it could be a polygon. So on some of these, for instance, number 7, it can have 3 special names. And on number 9, we'll put 2 because this one already is a parallelogram. All right, down at the bottom, you're going to have to read the attributes. It says, in 10 and 11, name the possible quadrilaterals that fits a rule. This one says it has to have 2 pairs of parallel sides. Well, remember, I told you that 2 pairs of parallel sides are in this category. So like I said, make sure that you do write this list for yourself before you get started on this lesson. It is very helpful. Trapezoid is different. It only has 1 pair of parallel sides. So keep that in mind as you're working on number 10 and 11. This one here has 1 pair of parallel sides. That one's the one I just mentioned. Again, use the list above to write in the name of the quadrilateral. Now I'm going to move on to the back in problem solving. And most of these questions are dealing with shapes, but there are some that you have to work on some algorithms. So let's take a look at number 12 and 13. On number 12 and 13, it says, write the name that best describes the quadrilateral. So again, just be careful when you read the attributes and think of the shape that it could be. Use the list that you made on the top and the front to figure out these. Okay, the first one says a rectangle has all sides the same, that are the same length. Now the key here says all the sides are the same. There is a special rectangle that has all sides the same. In other words, the one I mentioned earlier has all sides congruent. Write in the name right here. If it doesn't fit, you can write it underneath. Number 13, I need a parallelogram. Remember, there are 4 parallelograms. Okay, but this one has to have right angles. Now remember, the right angles are created, and I'll go ahead and work on this one with you. There are actually 2, and I'm going to draw this one, but you name me the other one. Now this is a rectangle, but the right angles are created when it makes a perfect L. We had talked about this in class, And when I did this in class, I would put boxes around where it made the perfect L. These are right angles, but this is a rectangle. What's the name of the other one? Write the name right here. Okay, don't write rectangle because I gave you that answer. Write the other one that has 4 right angles like that. All right, let's move over to this one on number 14. It says, what is the shape of the wheels on the bike? So that's the first question you're going to answer. This one actually has 3 questions. So name the shape that you see here. Write it in the bullet. Okay, second bullet says, how is this shape different from the wheels on other bikes? So you've got to think about a real bike that you might have at home or that you've seen, and tell me the name of the shape that's supposed to go in there instead of those shapes. And then finally, the last bullet, so this one has 3 answers. Will the wheels work? So if you put these types of wheels on the bike, will it work? If the answer is yes, put yes. The answer is no, put no. But then it says, tell me why. So let's say that your answer is no, and it's obvious that these wheels are not going to work. So the answer is no, but I want to know why. So you're going to continue the sentence, because, give me a reason. And once you finish with your because statement, you put a period. So on number 14, it has 3 answers for it. Let's go to number 15. Number 15 says, I am a special quadrilateral, so still thinking of that quadrilateral, with opposite sides of the same length. Now, earlier on in the lesson, I talked to you about a shape that had opposite sides congruent. What is the name of that quadrilateral? All I need to know is the name of it. And actually, there's 2 of them that have opposite sides congruent. Just write me one. If you want to write both of them, write both of them. Number 16 says, how are a rectangle and a rhombus alike? How are they different? So tell me one way that they are alike, and you can do a T-chart here. Right? This is how they are alike, and this is how they are different. And you have to name me one reason. Okay, remember, a rectangle looks like this. And a rhombus looks like this. So let me make it a little bit bigger. The rhombus looks like this. Remember, it's like a square that's slanted. So think about that when you're working on number 16. Now, let's look at number 17. Sue bought a book for $12, 2 maps for $7, and a pack of postcards for $4. What was Sue's total cost before tax? So notice that it has that they want the total. And total means addition. So they want you to add these numbers. But be careful, because it says $12 for that book, but she bought 2 maps that were $7. So how many times do you need to put 7 in your equation? Think about that. And then a pack of postcards for $4. So be careful, because it might have a distractor here showing you the answer for someone that does not see that you have to buy 2 maps. So make sure that you have 2 maps, not 1 map, 2 maps. Last one says, the drought in the Midwest in 2012 was so bad that it could be seen from space. Some farm fields look like quadrilaterals. Draw a quadrilateral. So all you have to do here is draw me a quadrilateral. And think about what farms, like the crops look like. Do they look like rectangles? Do they look like squares? Do they look like rhombuses, trapezoids? Draw me one that you know that farm fields look like right here. Okay, and that is how you work on Unit 12, Lesson 1. Thank you for listening.